All right, guys, welcome to Making Multifamily Money. Some people might trickle in later down the road. If not, it's going to be pretty intimate. So today I just kind of wanted to talk about what it's like after you've bought your first apartment complex and kind of what the steps you take. I know this is a little bit more advanced topic for most people, but just want to give some transparency as well as some kind of what to expect when you take over apartment complex. So typically when you get an apartment under contract, it's around 60 days due diligence. So typically it's about 30 days for the inspection, and then you have another 30 days to close the loan. So that's 60 days is the best case scenario. If there's any delays for any reason, then you basically have to extend it, right? So most of the holdup is with the lender, or if the due diligence is not going that great, then you should go ask for an extension. And some sellers, when you ask for an extension, they make you put more money down. I mean, they make you add more money for the earnest money deposit. So let's just say the typical earnest money deposit is 1 to 3%. They may ask for another like 1% to extend it. So some sellers do that. It just really depends. So that's the process. So basically after you've done your due diligence, you closed, right? And what happens is the day you close, the next day you can basically go to title or go to your insurance and your title insurance company. Your property manager usually goes there, or if you're local, then you can go there yourself. For me, since I invest in Oklahoma, I have my property manager go over, and basically they grab the keys to all the units. So obviously, as you can imagine, if you have like a 26 unit or 20 unit or 50 unit, you're grabbing like 50 sets of keys. And then at that moment, your property manager needs to notify all the tenants of change of ownership or change of property management, so they know who to contact. So typically, they'll leave a note on the tenant's door. Obviously, if the prior owner could provide you with the name, email address, and phone number of the tenants, that's even better. So you can kind of reach out to them both ways. You can put a letter, as well as you can send them an email or give them a call. In Oklahoma, it's a little bit more old-fashioned, so I think people prefer the letter, just to notify them. And from that notification, they'll basically know who to contact for any maintenance issues, as well as rent. So that's where it becomes an issue, because let's just say you close on the 5th of the month, right? And the tenant's already paid on the 1st of the month. So the rent has to get prorated at escrow. So typically the seller will get, all the month's rent in advance, and you'll prorate it. So let's just say there's, 30 days in the month. The seller will get 5 days out of 30, and then you as a buyer get 25 days out of 30. So what I like about apartments is you get cash day one, right? You get all the prorated rent, as well as you get all the security deposits, 100%. So, you take over, you notify the new ownership. And typically what goes along with that is when you notify them, what's the first thing they think? Oh, hey, my sink is broken. My sink is leaky. My toilet's leaky. My shower door is broken. I need a new light bulb. Like, they're going to think of all these like maintenance issues that they need taken care of. So typically the moment you put letters out, you're going to get a lot of maintenance requests out the gate. For example, when I took over my 20 unit apartment complex, we put notices, and then literally within, I think, 3 days of the notice, I got 5 complaints about bed bugs. So basically I had to fumigate all 20 units for bed bugs. And, that costed me around, I think it was $500 per unit. So that's $10,000 out the gate just to fumigate all 20 units. And if you guys don't know, when you fumigate bed bugs, basically you have to take everything out of the closet, everything out of the kitchen cabinets, basically take everything out, put it in the middle of the room, and cover it with like a tarp, right? But then if the tenant's spending all that time and energy to take everything out of the cupboards, everything out of the closet, what else is easy to do? They just move out. So when I put a notice that I'm going to fumigate everything, I had about 4 or 5 tenants leave out the gate, right? So if you're projecting the cash flow whatever, $1,000 a month, fully occupied, you have 5 tenants leave at $400 each. That's negative $2,000 you lost in income. So now you're negative $1,000 a month. So, that just crashed your cash flow, right? So, that's another expectation to get is when you put notices, you're gonna get more maintenance requests. When you put notices, people are gonna leave, right? Because they know, hey, it's a new owner in town. They're probably gonna come in, fix the units, raise the rents a month to month, and then they're gonna start to leave, right? And some tenants may take it a step further where they'll just stop paying. Like they won't pay you the next month's rent. You give them eviction notice and they'll just leave, right? It's, Oklahoma's a little more tenant friendly. So that's another thing that happens. So, for some context, when I bought my 20 unit, I had about maybe 15 out of 20 occupied. Within 1 month, I had 7 tenants leave. So I dropped from 15 all the way down to 8 out of 20, right? So that's what I mean by I teach the students and all that is, we kind of aim for about a 6 to 10% cash on cash return day one. But that 6 to 10% cash on cash return day one goes out the window the moment you take over the property. So basically, you want to underwrite it with 10% cash, 6 to 10%, knowing that when you take over, you're probably going to break even or be slightly negative. So, that's just kind of some expectations. Let's see here. And it's just kind of crazy, right? So, and for some context, in Oklahoma, like the rents I'm charging is $500 a month, right? It's about $500 to $700 a month, depending on your market in the area. And it costs me $500 to fumigate each unit. So literally, if the apartment was completely full and I fumigated it, I would lose all my cash flow for that whole month, assuming it's 100% occupied, right? So that's why what I really preach to my students is you have to buy the property right. Like, I basically bought my 20 unit for $350,000. It appraised at $400,000 day one. So I came in with $50,000 of equity, and I already lost $10,000 to fumigate for bed bugs, right? So my 26 unit, I bought it for $500,000. It appraised at $750,000. So I made $250,000 of equity day one, right? So I mean, it's kind of like you need to buy deals right to get into equity day one, because whatever cash flow you projected, it's not going to be there the moment you take over. And then the number two is you have to be able to force depreciation, right? So how do you force depreciation? You renovate the units, you increase the rents, and by doing renovations, you're going to have turnover, right? Like I know, like imagine like I live in an apartment right now. If I hear the next door unit, all this construction noise, I know that, maybe they're going to kick me out on month to month. You're going to start looking. And a lot of these tenants, they know that they're getting low rent because the owner hasn't raised rents in probably, I think my 26 unit, he hasn't raised rents in 5 years. So they know they're getting a good deal and they're going to stop paying you, and then they're going to leave. And then now you have a vacant unit. So, that's another expectation. And something you do when you take over the property too, which I messed up the first time, is you have to quickly change all the utilities over to your name. And it's such a pain. It's such a pain in the ass to do it, right? Like literally imagine 26 units, and my 26 unit, the landlord was all bills paid. So the landlord paid for the gas, electricity, the water, trash, everything, right? So typically landlord covers the water, the trash. That's the standard. In some markets, you do something called rubs, and you'll bill back, the water and the trash, right? Like per unit. But for the gas, electricity, typically that's the tenant's responsibility, right? But because I took over a 26 unit where it was all bills paid, I had to transfer the utilities under my name. And imagine doing that for like 20, 15, 20 units. It gets kind of cumbersome. So you have to reach out to the electric company, either reach out to the gas company and move quickly. And what happened was, because, when you're taking over the property, there's so many moving pieces going on. Like my property manager had to go to the water department in person to basically give them a deposit to activate water service, and also do that. But they kind of got delayed because there's so many issues arising when you take over. And literally the landlord or the prior owner shut off the water, and none of my tenants had water for about 2 hours. And imagine when there's no water for 2 hours, like everyone's going to call the property manager, right? So, you have to quickly shift over utilities, right? Electricity, gas, everything. Like everything needs to be switched off as fast as possible. So when you first take over the property, you have to help do that immediately. Like for me, I would, call the gas department, I'll call the electricity department and do that. So, that's just kind of the struggle that I went through when I took over the apartment complex. So, it's kind of very upbringing. It's very stressful, obviously. And then, obviously, if you're a remote investor like me, or I'm based in California, I work a full-time W-2 job as a pharmacy director, and trying to, coordinate utility changes. In the beginning, I'm basically talking to the property manager on a daily basis to basically ask, like, what do you need, like, from me? And, for the apartments, you also have some laundry units. So you got to figure out, like, do you own the laundry units, or is it outsourced to a third party company? If it's outsourced to a third party company, you have to transfer the payments over to you. So, there's just a lot of moving pieces when you go on. I would say probably the first 2 weeks is pretty rough of a transition. Like, no matter how much you plan for it, there's always just going to be a lot of things that hit you. And on top of that, I'm basically coordinating my property manager, or my general contractor, sorry, to basically come and start renovating the units immediately, right? Like, the moment I take over the property, I want to hit the ground running. I want to get those vacant units renovated, get my contractor in there, get him to start, doing demolition, adding LVP flooring, and just, adding the dumpster there so you can dump all the demo stuff. So, it's just so many things to coordinate out the gate. So, it's just a lot of different moving pieces. So, when you listen, and why I kind of share this is when you listen to, all the podcasts out there for real estate, like Bigger Pockets is a really popular one. They just talk about what it looks like in like 3 to 4 years. And yeah, in 3 to 4 years, once my apartment's stabilized, it's going to be a cash cow, right? Like, my 26 unit, it's going to be worth $1.5 million. I got it for $500,000. I'm probably putting in around $300,000 into it, all in for $800,000. And I've almost doubled the value. I'm going to do cash out refi, pull out my down payment tax free. I'm going to pull out my renovation cost tax free and probably get money on top tax free. And then take out that money and then go from a 26 unit apartment complex, and I'll buy a 50 unit apartment complex and repeat the process and do that again for 3 years and then buy a 100 unit apartment complex. Right. So that's how I'm going to scale without partners. Right. Like that's my goal, is to basically scale without partners. And that's how you do it. And it just takes time. So, I feel like where a lot of YouTube channels and content fails is they don't really give you a step-by-step journey and kind of the reality of what happens. And the reason for that is they're trying to raise money, from investors. They're trying to sell real estate. They're trying to sell you something. So they don't want to give you like what it's really like. Like, let's just say I was a syndicator and I underwrote the deal. Like, yeah, you're going to make, whatever, 6% cash on cash day one. But after operating like 2 apartment complexes and a mobile home park, I know out for sure, like the moment you take over, whatever cash flow you projected is going to go out the window. Like, you'll be lucky to like break even or be slightly negative. So just having those expectations set up front is key, right? So, if you ever invest with a syndicator or investing in a deal, just expect that to happen. There may be a piece that they're not sharing with you there. And something else a little eye-opening too that hit me was, you can tell your general contractor, hey, like I'm closing on the property on the 5th. Like, can you start, on whatever, the 10th, once things are more stabilized? And they'll say yes. But literally my general contractor, because of the labor shortages, because of the supply shortages that was happening during COVID, literally my renovation was delayed, I think 6 months. Right. So imagine, like, if you have a hard money loan, you're up against the wall. Most hard money loans are about 12 months. If it takes you 6 months just to start renovation, you need to renovate 13 units. That's impossible. You're not going to hit your hard money loan. You're going to have to extend it, or it's going to be due, or you're going to have to just pay it off. completely. So, that's what hit me. So fortunately for my 26 unit, I have long-term financing on it. It's great. So as a result, it's definitely less pressure on me. But for my 20 unit, I was very fortunate. I have a 12-month hard money loan, and um, the contractor just hit the ground running too. Like literally, I think the first week after I owned the property, I switched all the utilities in my name. He started renovating the units, but even though he started on time, we were still having massive delays because I had to get permits from the city, and they were having delays. And then when the city inspector comes, they're gonna want you to do additional things. So it's just like constant delay, constant delay, constant delay. So um, that's just kind of a high level overview of what it's like to take over a property. I guess I kind of want to open it up now to some questions that people have. Any questions? So yeah, you guys, any questions?
Hey, Steven, can you hear me?
Yeah, a little bit quiet, but I can hear you.
Hey, yeah, the way my office is set up, my laptops are a little bit further away, and I'm using the mic. Is this better? I'm a little closer to it now.
That's better. Perfect.
Okay, great. Hey, yeah, I know we've been talking a little bit on and off about the mobile home parks, but I'm very interested in hearing how your experience has gone. So I'm in a similar situation. I still have a full-time W-2. I live in New York. High cost of living and investing out of state. I've done like flips and mess and title deals and whatnot, but I'm entering the mobile home park space a lot more. And I was just wondering, how are you doing due diligence from far away? How's your team set up like? Because a lot of times these value add deals, I feel like you really need a pulse on it. So I'm just interested in hearing how you're able to do it without being there all the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question, man. So I'll be honest, out of my 90 units, I probably spend 80% of my time and 80% of my money on my mobile home park, for some context.
Yeah.
Right. Like for some context, I dumped $600,000 into my mobile home park in 1 year, which is more money than I would ever like to spend. And even though the money is allocated to it, the psychological stress of writing $50,000, $100,000 checks every month
hmm
gets to you,
I, I
right?
think I think yours is a big infill project, right? Like you're
Oh yeah,
buying these
yeah,
in. Yeah.
yeah, correct. So let me take a step back and give some context. So basically, I bought a 200 lot mobile home park in Alabama,
hmm
and basically, I think 30 out of 200 were occupied,
Yeah.
and there was probably, geez, like 40 homes that were vacant, needing repair.
hmm
And out of the remaining 130, they had utilities set up there, but they need to be infilled. So
Yeah.
this is a huge, huge project, right? And a lot of park owned homes. Alabama's a renter market, so unfortunately, you have to get homes in and rent them out at first, and then eventually, once the home value goes down, you sell it, and then that's when people become homeowners and pay you lot rent. So
Oh wow. Okay.
a lot of people in mobile home parks, and I was the same way, is they think it's very rosy and great, right? Like they're like, oh, like mobile home park, it's recession resistant. It's easier to manage, it's more cash flow, it's higher equity. But from my experience doing a heavy info project,
Yeah.
and the reality is beginners like us, we only get heavy info projects. Like all the good deals where you hear about, oh, it's all tenant owned homes, very passive. Those don't go to people like me and you. Those go to
Right.
the big fish syndicators,
Yeah.
right? And so for me, I have an offsite manager. They manage 70 mobile home parks, and they have 7 regional offsite managers. So each regional manages 10. And then I have an on-site manager who lives at the park. And then that on-site manager manages a renovation team of 5 people, because I basically fixed up 20 mobile homes in about a year, just
hmm
at a mobile home park, right? And I literally just brought in 2 brand new homes from True Homes, and
hmm
for about 35,000 total, 5,000 for setup costs, of $40,000 all in. And then basically I rented those out for about $700 each. But just the steps to do that, to bring a brand new mobile home, there's so many pieces. You have to basically coordinate delivery from True Homes to your mobile home park, hire a separate installer,
Yeah.
gonna install it, hire a handyman to skirt it, attach the utilities, talk to the state to get the utilities set up, and then that takes like a month at
Yeah,
least.
permitting process.
And then while it's there, you're paying every month, right? Like the moment the home's placed down, I'm paying mortgage on that home, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, that's what the program I use. The 21st, if you're lucky to qualify for the 21st, they don't charge you mortgage out the gate, right? They only charge you once you rent it.
I got you.
So, the lender I use, the moment the home's down, I'm paying. So the clock's ticking, right?
Yeah.
And mine was a good case scenario. So, what I'm kind of alluding to is in mobile home parks, there's so many moving pieces. And what I teach my students is the more moving pieces, the more points of failure, the more time delay there is. And the more time delay there is, it's going to cost you money. So I would say, even though I have an on-site property manager and a renovation team, I'm still heavily involved like in this deal. And it's just removing their barriers, but also keeping them in check, because no one's going to care about your asset as much as you. Right. And believe me, if you're writing $50,000 checks every month, you're going to care. Right. And like every little mistake you make on mobile home parks, it's magnified significantly.
Yeah.
Right. So like, for example, when you own 55 acres of land, one thing that I didn't realize is landscaping is so freaking expensive. Like I had to trim 7 trees, 100-foot tall. It's $7,000 just to trim 7 trees. And I have to hire a full-time guy just to mow the freaking lawn. And I have to buy an industrial grade lawnmower.
Yeah.
Right. So, for me, I'm actually in the process of selling my mobile home park. I wanted to be a buy and hold, but then I ran out of capital, and I basically have to, pursue, I basically got a good offer for it. I don't want to jinx myself, so I don't want to give more details yet until after I've closed. But basically I hit the point where my exit, the exit that makes the most sense is to sell it, take my money, and then double down in apartments in Oklahoma, because I know that market. I have a really strong team there, and it's more passive. Like literally for me, I don't even think about my apartments at all. Like I just call, like today I just called my property manager and say, hey, how many units are ready, and are they gonna be rented out soon? Because I'm renovating. And they're like, oh yeah, 2 are rent ready, and we got like 3 good applicants, and probably they'll rent it out. So for me, what I learned is, I think for mobile home parks, if you're doing a heavy value add, you have to like almost live there, like in the park. You definitely.
I connected with a couple of people, and they lived in the park. They lived in like 3 or 4 parks when they first started. But your project sounds very intense, very capital intensive too. Like it sounds like borderline. You're developing a mobile home community with that many infill lots. It's tough, because even in that market, when you're getting tenants that a lot of them are going to be hard to qualify for, purchasing, even if it's a Century 21 or anything. So I feel like for that model, you're probably going to hold the note for a long, or you're probably going to be paying the mortgage on it for a while until someone comes in and is qualified. I've heard of other people doing infilling where they like buy used homes, and then they'll sell it for like fixer upper, and like you'll have contractors come in and they'll fix it up and they'll live there, and then it's much more, I guess, like not as cost intensive at 40 grand a pad, but yeah, that just sounds like a crazy project.
Well, let me give you some context for that question. So basically, that 40 grand was 100% financed, so I had $0 out of my pocket.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But when you buy a used home, number one, it's hard to find a used home, right? So, and if you do find a used home, it's going to be, let's say, $5,000. You're going to have to move that home from that park to your park and set it up. It's going to cost you another $5,000 and then $10,000 to fix it up. So that's $20,000 of your own money.
Yeah.
Right. And if it's too old, you're not going to be able to do a cash out refi on it and get lending on it. So conceptually, yes, it sounds great, but you're more leveraged, or you're less leveraged versus a new home. It gives you more curb appeal. Just having that new home in the community makes it very good. And what I kind of learned too is, like, even if you do rent to own, So a
Mhm.
lot of popular thing in mobile home park and a lot of syndicators, what they sell you is, oh, I want to do rent to own. But the
Yeah.
reality is, being a renter and a landlord is a completely different mindset. It sounds
Yeah.
great to say, oh, I'm rent to own. I'll pay you additional $50 a month for like 5 years.
Yeah.
But how many will actually make it through the 5 year contract?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. In the moment the water heater busts and then they're responsible for it, they're like, oh no, I want to get out of this because
Yeah.
they can't afford like, that. So, for me, my mobile park's in the southeast, so I can't speak for like, higher cost of living in like California. But
Yeah.
um if I were to do mobile home parks again, and I feel like I wouldn't touch mobile home parks until I literally made so much money from apartments that I left my day job. At
Yeah.
that point, I would consider diversification. But for me, just the amount of effort and stress it went into mobile home parks, it's just not worth it for me.
Yeah.
And there's no good third party management in mobile home parks. Like
Yeah.
my manager, they do 70 parks, but even then, like I was frustrated with some of the stuff that they did. And you know, so it's just a lot of growing pains. And but if you have a team, like if you look at the syndicators, like to pick a good mobile home park syndicator, they better have property management in-house because there's no good property management. They better have an installer in-house, and they better have like regional managers there that are like physically at the property if they're doing a huge like value add infill project,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, I got my mobile home park, I bought it right. Like, I got it for like $1 million,
Hmm.
10% down, the rest seller financing. So I
Hmm.
bought the deal great. So I just knew that like I bring it as far as I could, and then flip it to the next owner.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
typically you're flipping it to like a bigger operator. So
Yeah.
to me, I get the concept of mobile parks, but just my experience of owning it for about over a year now, like it's just not, the juice is not worth the squeeze for me. Like honestly, like if you're just trying to like retire yourself from your W-2, like you can do that with apartments. It's so much simpler. Like apartments, it's just like a box and they're more sturdy. Like mobile homes, like over time, they don't last as long. And
Yeah.
in the southeast, there's tornadoes. So if a
Yeah.
tornado hit a park in the southeast and destroyed the home, like these tenants, they can't afford to get a new home if they didn't get good insurance.
Yeah.
So I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but that's just been my experience with mobile home parks. I mean, conceptually, it sounds amazing. Like when you listen to the podcast, and I listen to all those podcasts too,
Yeah.
for mobile home park investing. But with the park owned homes in the southeast, it's just not. It's a renter's market. But I cannot speak for like maybe California. Like if I ever were to buy one, I would probably want to get one in California,
Hmm.
have it mostly tenant owned homes, and then city water, city sewer.
Yeah.
But those are going to be expensive, right? To get something like that. And why I want it in California is because I want to be able to drive to it and
Right.
check on it on a quarterly basis.
Right.
If I'm only going to own one and I don't have a team, I have to be the one to do it.
What
So
market were you in Alabama? What city?
I'm in like the middle, so like kind of near Montgomery.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And those areas are a little bit more higher crime,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
Hmm.
So it's what you want to do, and it really depends. But to me, it's not as easy as people make it seem.
Yeah.
Like, I was trying to flip my mobile home park to the fifth largest operator of mobile home parks, actually.
Hmm.
And even just talking to him, I can just tell that like his operations was like kind of a shit show, for lack of a better word. Yet they're the fifth largest operator.
Yeah.
So that goes to show you that like it's just a hard business to deal with and be in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really reevaluate what you want to do. Like to me, I think apartments are just so much easier. Like it's just a box that you renovate, and it's just copy and paste, and there's so much more management.
Hmm.
So that's just kind of my 2 cents. And for me, it's just pick one asset class and double down, triple down on it. Like there's no
Hmm.
point in like being good at apartments and good at mobile home parks. Like just be good at apartments or mobile home parks. Just commit to one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for me, I chose to commit to apartments in Oklahoma because I have a really strong team there, and I can basically
Mhm.
scale probably to like, once I sell at mobile home park, and then I finish my two apartment complexes, I can probably buy 50 to 100 units like in about maybe 2 3 years and double my portfolio. to 150. At that point, I can probably quit my job
Right.
and leave my day job. So it's yeah. Does that answer your
Did you
question?
did you notice the earlier in the apartments you were saying that at transition your cash on cash goes down. Did you notice that with your mobile home park also?
Oh yeah, same thing, right? So the moment you take over, the tenants are gonna complain like, "Oh, I want my mobile home park skirted. Why is that one skirted? Mine's not. Oh, I have a leaky roof. Can you fix it? Same thing." And then people will stop paying. And what people don't tell you is it's hard to evict someone when they own their own home, right? A
Wait,
tenant's home, it's hard to evict them
so they
versus
wanted you to skirt their tenant owned home?
no, for the ones where I own the homes.
Oh, okay, okay, I
Yeah,
got you.
for
Yeah,
the park owned homes, I
yeah,
had to skirt those homes. But for the
yeah,
tenant owned, if you want the curb appeal, like it's hard getting them to skirt their homes, right? Because you have
yeah,
to ask
yeah,
them
yeah,
to say that. And then, a lot of the tenants, when you take over, they don't pay. There's a long list of delinquent rents. And
yeah,
it's just kind of like, all right, they're paying me $150 in lot rent, and it's gonna cost me $800 to evict them.
yeah,
It's like literally, it's like literally it cost me 4 months of your lot rent just to evict you.
yeah. It,
So
it's really
yeah,
a collections business. I've heard from a lot of people.
yeah, and then like it's you're dealing with lower income tenants,
Hmm.
right? And they're more susceptible to things like they're not going to have money saved.
Yeah,
Their job might not be as stable. So to me, I really commend people who can actually flip a mobile home because it's a lot of work. And like I said, you need to be there like physically yourself, even
yeah,
despite having an asset manager and offsite and an on-site manager. You literally have to be there to basically make it successful. That's what I've come to the conclusion that I basically have to physically be there,
yeah.
and I don't want to do that. That's not why I'm investing in real estate. I want
Mhm.
time freedom, which is why I'm doing it. So for me, I was like, this is not my cup of tea anymore. So I want to basically sell it and offload it, and then just fortunately, I'm not going to lose money
Yeah,
on the deal, but I'm not making as much as I thought. I just
yeah,
kind of get it off my plate and move on with my life. So
yeah.
um, yeah. Does that answer your question, Vincent?
Yeah, yeah, no, it definitely helps a lot. Yeah, yeah, I'm still diving into it. I was about to have one under contract, but then I think like he didn't want to do it anymore. So I'm trying to piece all the pieces together as I'm going through this process.
Did you have any real estate experience currently, Vincent? Or
Yeah,
you?
yeah, but not by like a huge expert amount, but I've done a few flips. I own a duplex for a rental. I've done a few messy title deals. I've done some land. Uh, so I wouldn't say I'm a complete newbie, but I'm not a super experienced, seasoned investor either.
Yeah, I mean, I own single family homes. I don't. I mean, technically, I'm flipping, but I renovated about 40 units in about 1 year.
Hmm.
So in a way, I'm like a high level flipper already, by nature of it, because I had to rent it between my two apartments. So context too, I'm renovating a 26 unit, a 20 unit, and a mobile home park all simultaneously while
Yeah,
working full time, right?
yeah,
So it's almost like two full-time jobs doing both. And I will say it's just a different animal, like altogether. Like nothing can repair for mobile home parks, to be honest. It's
wow,
just like I consumed like all the podcasts for mobile home parks like
yeah,
in a month. That's how much I consumed it, and literally, they probably touched like 10% of what it's really like when you own it.
yeah, yeah,
And the reason is because they're just trying to sell you the deal and get you to invest with them. So
right,
for me, if you were gonna invest yourself over a partner, like honestly, if you just want to go mobile homes, I would almost lean towards like just invest with a syndicator who's like the top five
right,
because they already have a track record. Like, don't risk your money with someone new who's trying to get into the business, or
right.
even yourself. Like, like I could have, I'm lucky to get my money back, but this deal could have easily, I could have lost like a couple $100,000 on this deal too,
Right, right.
right? And it would have been a hard knocks MBA to not do
Yeah,
mobile home park. So the fact that I can even break even or make a little money, I'm fortunate to even have that.
yeah,
And I only have that because I bought the deal right. And
yeah,
then On top of that, I got great seller financing, which the new buyer will assume.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I'm at the seller carry second some money too. Right.
Oh, oh, the seller's carrying. Wait, you're carrying some also?
Yeah. So
Oh,
basically, they're going to assume my loan. Right. And I have
yeah,
to sell it carry second, a couple $100,000. So I still have some money in the deal and they're going to pay me interest on that money. And that's just the
yeah,
nature of mobile home parks. Right.
yeah,
So, I would say like, yeah, like as a, if you're just trying to do like one or two for yourself, like just invest with a syndicator, save yourself the headache. If not, just do a different asset class. Like it's not worth it, in
yeah,
my opinion. There's apartments, there's like triple net industrial as
yeah,
well, which is popular and more passive. So, like I said, if you want to do mobile home parks, you better be sure that like, you want to build a business around it. Like, own like multiples, right? Like 10, 20, 30
yeah,
parks. If it's just one or two, like I wouldn't recommend mobile home parks, you know,
yeah.
in the Southeast.
Gotcha. Thank you. I definitely appreciate your insight.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions from anybody?
I got some questions. I know Stephen, we've been talking about like the mailing campaigns that you've done and really, really helpful content. How do you balance when you're sending out these mailers? Like, you're trying to incentivize someone to sell you something that they may not be thinking about. So like, how do you think about like inspections versus buying as is and just like getting some concessions? And then how frequently are you actually mailing these people?
Yeah, so my mailing campaign works for any asset class, apartments, mobile home parks, self-storage as well. So for me, you have to do it. I did 300 a month for about 6 months. So that's 1,800 letters, and I
And
closed
so
on
you're
two.
mailing the same people every single month.
No, it's so 1,800 total. And so let's say my total list is 1,800. You have to hit that whole list of 1,800 at least 7 times to be the most effective. Right? It's just like asking people if anyone works in healthcare, like I do,
Right.
like to ask someone to quit smoking, you have to ask them at least 7 times. It's the same
So
with
that means theoretically, if you got 0 responses, you could be sending out 13,000 pieces of mail ish.
in a sense, yeah, over
Yeah.
the long term. So where a lot of people give up is the mailing is you're buying a situation, right? So let's just say you sent me a letter in the mail from my apartment complex, and I'm like, I'm not motivated at all, right? But maybe in like 2 years, when I get that letter again, maybe there's a situation where you're going through a divorce. Someone's going through a divorce, and now they're more motivated to sell. So what I kind of teach my students is like you're not buying real estate, you're buying situations, and you're just basically sending letters in hope that your letter arrives in the right time and the right situation. And basically, the point of the letter is to get the owner to call you, and then when they call you, you need to understand what their motivations, what their pain point are, and basically come with a helping hand, right? Like I'm trying to help you solve this problem, and let's create a win-win situation. And basically, that's how you build trust.
And are you mailing like every month or every like 6
Yeah,
weeks or
every month. So every month, 300 letters, and you have to commit to at least 12 months to see any results at all. And on top of that, you have to basically follow up. Like when they call you, you better respond within 24 hours. Like whether they call, text, or email you, you better respond, right? So that's what I kind of do. And it's kind of discouraging at some points. So sometimes you send a batch and you just hit nothing, and then you send another one, you hit nothing. But then like people might call you. Like I still get calls to this day from letters I sent like over a year ago, and you just have to be persistent about it. And what I kind of tell people is like, well, if you can't afford whatever, $500 a month or $600 a month on marketing, you shouldn't be investing in apartment complexes at all, right? Like
Sure.
like that's what I kind of teach. So like, if you basically follow a proven system, you can save a lot of money in terms of your mailers.
Yeah. How do you balance? And I know like you talked about like the mom and pops, like they like getting, you mentioned some guy said like, oh, I love that you send a letter because no one does that. But, for folks that are maybe LLCs or younger, like I see on like PropStream, you can like skip trace and find their like phone number or their email. I feel like if it were me personally, like I would respond much better to an email versus a letter. Like, did you also do emails and phone calls or texts, or you just did the letter like system?
So for me, I just do letters because I don't have the capacity to do the cold call, cold texting because I work full time. I mean, unless I outsource that to an outside agency or hire a virtual assistant. But for me, I just like letters because it's the most leveraged. Like literally, I send letters out and the hot leads will call me, right? And all I have to do is respond. So it's more passive in my mind. Like I just send the letters out, I use a company, and then they'll call me or text me, email me, and I just need to respond. So it weeds it out versus like if you cold call, cold text, cold email. I mean, while you may respond, Edward, but like you cannot put your brain into the seller's mind. That's where people fall into the trap. Like everyone's probably wondering, why did someone sell me a deal when I made $250,000 equity day one? I asked myself the same question, right? I want to do it, right? If it was me, I want to do it, but you cannot put your mind in their, you cannot put your mind in the seller's mind because they have a different reason. Like maybe it's a situation, maybe they just want to work with a person that owns a property, whatever it is, right? We don't know what it is. So, there's a reason why they're calling you.
Fair. Did you switch up the copy at all, or you just sent the same letter like every time?
Yeah, no. So I switched up the copy with that. So, in my course and whatnot, I give my template that I use and the strategy I use, but you just kind of, basically the point of the letter is to get them to call you. Basically, that's all it is, right? Like the point of the letter is you open the letter, be interested enough to open it, and then basically call you. That's basically the whole point of the letter. And after they call you, that's when the ball's in your court and you have to build the trust. So, yeah.
And then I think you meant last question here. I think you mentioned earlier about like targeting like an entry cap rate of like 6%. Is that like the number that you were going off of even when they were naming their price? And you're like, if obviously it's the price is at the current like cap rate of like 6% or above, you're just like, okay, this is a good deal. Maybe I negotiate down a little bit, but I'm happy with that. Assuming you're going to stabilize and get a higher cash on cash after.
Yeah. So when I underwrite the deal, so I'm not sure if you saw my mastermind about underwrite. I underwrote a few deals live. But basically I take the income, right? And the expense is actually 55% in Oklahoma. I know that because I own 2 apartments there. But I typically assume 50%, but Oklahoma owes 55. And then basically from there, you have your income after your expenses. And then after that, you do your debt service. And then your debt service needs to be greater than 1.25 if you want a lender to finance it. But on top of that, like for me, that's just kind of a ballpark number. But what I talked about earlier is like, yeah, I projected 10% cash on cash for my 26 unit. But once, 4 people left, I'm breaking even, right? And then you're pumping in money to renovate it. So now you're coming out of pocket too, right? Like you're pumping in, $20,000, $30,000 a month to renovate 2 or 3 units a month, right? So it's kind of like when you're doing like a value add deal, like the notion of cash and cash day ones, actually, I kind of squash that. I just underwrite it. So I know that like, okay, it's still making decent money, but all that money that you're getting is gonna go back into the property anyways.
Right.
So,
You're talking about the stabilized anyways, right? That's the long tail for you.
Yeah. So it's going to take like 2 to 3 years to stabilize it. And you're probably not going to cash flow. So that's why I get humbled. Like if I told you, Edward, I own 90 units of real estate, like the first thing you're going to think is like, why are you not retired on a yacht flying private jets? Right.
Well, I live in California too, so I get it.
Yeah. Right. Like I own 90 units. And I was like, if you told me 2 years ago that I own 90 units, I'll be like, I'm not working. I'm probably retired on a boat in Thailand somewhere. Right. But what humbled me is like, it takes like 3 years to stabilize apartments. Mobile home park, at least 5 years, 5 to 10 years. So as a result, I actually feel more poor. I'll be honest. I feel more poor when I bought 80 units in 8 months than I did when I owned 5 single family homes in California. Because I'm pumping money every month, and just the psychology of doing that, it messes with you. So, you basically have to give it time and be patient and be humble enough to work still while doing it. I know a lot of like people on social media, like they have a huge followings, own less units than me. They syndicate and they flex like, nice cars and like lavish lifestyles. But I know like, okay, you're just basically flexing, get all these views, but like, I know what it's really like underneath. Right. So it just, the expectation is like at least, 3 years before you start seeing any cash flow. But if you look at a 10-year horizon plus, I mean, yeah, in 10 years, I mean, this thing is gonna be, I probably would have cashed out, refinanced this like twice and it'll still be making cash flow on it. So you have to look at the long game. Like single family, it's kind of more instant. Like, okay, you have a single family home, you rent it out. California, okay, you'll be break even at best. And I own a single family in Alabama. That thing makes $700 a month, cash flow. But that's all it is, right? But once you get an apartment, you raise rent by $50 per unit, you own like 50 units, that's $2,500, right? So you have to think long game with apartments. And I kind of had that misconception because I listened to Bigger Pockets and they're just like, oh yeah, like I own this many, like I own 12 units and I'm retired. And I'm like, well, I own like 5x that and I'm still working, a W-2 and being humble with myself. So
yeah, I respect the hustle, man. Thanks for the answers.
Cool. Any questions from anyone else? Just want to give value.
Hey, Stephen, I chime in there. I use a VA. They're actually really not that expensive in my opinion. I do cold calls instead of mailer. I think just a personal preference. I've had success with cold calls, so I don't know. I just feel like I never respond to mail really, and if somebody calls me, then I quickly either hang up or say no, and they'll know I'm not motivated. But I use a VA. She's $3 an hour, and then I use open phone, which is like the VPN, the phone number, and it records for you. That's like $20 a month, and then we just work off of Google Sheets. So it's really the marketing money used to scare me, but it's not that bad if you guys are considering it. I used to be the one cold calling it, and then I was just like, hey, I can't scale like this. I have a full-time job too, so I hired a VA. So
How do you grab the leads? Do you just buy like a list, or you like skip trace?
I source my own. I like to source my own. Yeah. So like I'm only in the NC market. What market are you guys are you in, Edward?
Oh, well, actually, funny enough, I was looking at the OKC market as well. That's what I'm exploring right now.
So I don't know about how Oklahoma is, but in NC, some of the counties are very open data, and you can easily pull lists from there. And then if you're kind of decent in Excel, some VLOOKUPs or whatever, you can kind of like, get the data out of there. And then from there on, you just go use your skip tracing. Either there's free ones, but they kind of suck, and then there's like, batches and more expensive. But yeah, to answer your question, I like to pull my own.
Okay. How much do you spend on marketing per month? And what's your kind of or I guess how many leads do you typically get on a monthly basis?
So I just started her. I think she's gonna be $6,000 a year. I think all in, I'm gonna be 7K and under. But last year when I was cold calling myself, I did I think 3 deals. I don't know out of how many. But I think it was like 80K in deals. Like that was my profit. So like I was being cheap for a long time. I really could have hired it out, like invested back into the business. But I'm so cheap that I was like, no, I'm gonna just call myself when I have some downtime. And then after a while, I was like, I can't keep calling. So then I just started to hire it out. On one of the podcasts, I think probably Bigger Pockets, they say something like, when does this work start to feel heavy on your shoulders or annoying? That's probably when you should start to source it out. And then I was like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at the same time too, like you have to put in the initial work, right? Because you've done it cold calling yourself, you can now teach your virtual assistant and also validate what they're doing is correct, right? Like for me, I actually sent out my first letter batch. I made 300 letters myself, and it took me 8 hours. I'm like, geez, I can make more money working as a pharmacist than doing this. But by doing it, you basically can see how to do it, and you can validate how it's done. So,
Yeah.
And then, like I guess unfortunately for us, we can afford to pay this, but a lot of people who are just starting off who don't have the money yet, some people don't have the W-2 yet. They have to put in the work initially to do that. But no, it's great to know. Like, yeah, I've done letters, but I know, like for mobile home parks and self-storage, if I did do off-market deals, it's usually a combination of both. Like I will send a letter out and then follow up with a call a week later.
Yeah.
Because the list is so small. For those two, you can do it, but if you're doing apartments, a little bit bigger of a list. For me, letters just seem to work for me because I feel like in this digital age, people get so bombarded with text messages, spam calls. Like I get cold texted a lot, even myself, because I own so many assets, and they go automatically to spam. People will cold call me. The number says spam on it, and then for emails, like, once you kind of hit my level where you have 90 units and you're managing 90 units and working a full-time W-2, you're trying to conserve your energy, right?
Yeah.
And for me, just the thought of like having to basically do all that, it's just kind of like mind numbing for me. And so that's why I just like sending out the letters. And then, you know, when you get cold texted, like you get a lot of people just say F you, right? I'm sure people get a lot of that where like, hey, screw you. Why are you calling me? You're from China, or you're from, not China, you're from California.
Yeah.
So, you know, versus with letters, like they already kind of pre-select themselves. Like the ones that call you, like they're either A, fishing for a crazy price, or B, they may actually be motivated. So I think there's no right or wrong answer. You know, I've just had success with letters. But, you know, you can do obviously a multi-pronged approach. And because I think just in this day and age, like it's rare to get a letter now. Like most of the letter that mail I get, when I grab it, I literally just go straight to the trash can and just start throwing away most of the stuff. It's spam. But the letter strategy I do, it's very like, imagine like a friend sent you like an invitation card, like a wedding card. So you're more likely to be like, oh, what's this? And open it and then look at it. And then, you know, they may call you or they just may toss it somewhere. So for me, that was kind of my rationale, given the digital age. In a weird way, it kind of might have flipped back. But like I said, it just really depends on your market. Like obviously, if letters doesn't work, then you should pivot to another strategy, you know, for a bit. So it just really depends on it. But the key is like, you got to just do it consistently.
Yeah, it's a numbers game, right?
Yeah. That's what I've learned too, that it's all about a numbers game. You know, honestly, these marketing channels are really just a quick filter. Like, who's interested in selling, and then, you know, that's all it is. And then I think like the numbers are like, you call 100, 10 are fake interested. They're fishing for numbers, got like, you know, COVID pricing premium. And then maybe out of one of them, they're really motivated to sell you a deal. So it all depends. But I came from single family and distressed situations. So like think heirs, divorces, you know, etc., delinquent taxes. What I've noticed is that each asset class is different. Like when I was going after single family distress, like single family is probably easier because more people end up distressed than I would say, I don't know, triple net warehouse owner.
Yeah.
Like it's much rare to find that kind of motivated seller. So I think you just have to like fine tune your strategy to it. Cause like the single family and the land, vacant land in those spaces, they're kind of like, I don't know, either inherited the property or don't care about it.
Yeah.
But I think when you somehow inherit a warehouse or inherit a multifamily, you just slightly have a better pricing in your mind for what that asset is. That's been my experience.
It's also probably because you're cash flowing so much better, right? On a multifamily, assuming it's passed down, it's paid off, right?
Yeah.
No, these are great points. Those are great points.
Yeah, versus like middle of nowhere, Statesville, North Carolina, right? They're like, oh, I don't know what my grandpa did with that land, but you want to pay me 10 grand for it? I'll take a check for 10 grand. Because like to them, it was just, you know, zero. But when you hear like, yeah, I don't know, we have a multifamily house that pays our bills every month. I don't know if I want to cash out on this. So unless you got my $5 million, Mr. New York cell phone number or Cali cell phone number, I'm probably not going to go for it.
No, it's a great, and let me give some more context. So with single family homes, it's mostly like people like us, right? Like it's just kind of your average person, like our parents, they might own a single family home. So that they're less sophisticated, but the mom and pop operators in apartments, even though they're less sophisticated, but overall the fact that they own an apartment makes them more sophisticated than like 90% of them. So a lot of these mom and pop operators, they already know like creative financing. Like if you pitch it to them, like they already kind of know about it. They might have bought it with creative financing. So like, let's just say they want a sky in the high price. I'm like, well, I'll give you your price, but you better give me terms when we're gonna do this creative financing, right? Because the lender will not lend on it. So I'll overpay you, but I better get 0% down, 0% interest. Let's make payments. And
how do you make that work, Steven? Because if someone, like, I think you had an example of like, I would pay one, but then they want two, but I'll do it on my terms. But ultimately, you're still on the hook to pay them $2 million, right? If you believe the asset is worth one. So how do you reconcile that?
Yeah. So basically, let's say I'm overpaying by $1 million, right? So basically at that point, you know, I probably want 0% down, very low, and then 0% interest only. But when I underwrite the deal, I better know that I can make the value of it, you know, way more than that, right? So like it has to be at least 3 to 4 million after I've done X, Y, and Z. So let's say I renovate it, I'm able to double the rents. Then if I can hit that, but a safety net that I implement is, let's just say I buy it for $2 million, and let's just say it appraises at like 1.5 in like 2 years, and you're kind of stuck, right? So what I build into a clause in the contract is if it doesn't appraise at the price that I'm buying it at, the contract gets auto renewed for another like 5 to 10 years, whatever it is. So that way it gives you another 5 to 10 year segment to get that value beyond whatever that is. So that's the safety that you need to build in, right? So I'm not just recklessly, hey, I'll give you whatever and shoot myself in the foot. So basically I need a cash flow, right? Because I'm going to negotiate terms. I have better cash flow in the deal, but also build in safety net where, hey, like in 5 years, if it doesn't appraise, it's going to be extended for another 5 years. And most sellers are so confident, like, oh, my property's going to appraise, they'll give it to you, right? Like it's usually a no-brainer. So that's kind of a hack that I've done with like creative financing for a lot of my deals. So that's to protect me. And like I said, even if it doesn't appraise, whatever, I'm cash flowing it, right? Like even if I don't hit that goal, and then hopefully in the next 5 years, it will appraise, and I just get, a traditional, lender on it. So that's what's nice about creative financing is that literally every single term is negotiable. Like that's why I love about it. And you're more likely to get it with like apartment complexes. Like with single family, just try and teach somebody creative financing. It's a lot of work. If you can do it, obviously it's great. But with apartments, people, and especially mobile home parks too, like they already kind of know like it's seller financing, because mobile home parks for the longest time, they didn't have great financing. So seller financing is the norm. So like the fact that like I'm trying to sell my mobile home park with, so I got seller finance and I'm carrying a second, right? Because I know like I'm gonna have to carry second to sell this deal to make it appetizing for the next buyer. So it's just more common in mobile home parks and multifamily versus single family. It's like kind of a more foreign subject to like buy something seller carry first or subject to with this zero debt on it. So, in multis, I think that if you have a motivated buyer or seller, like they're willing to work with you. Like they're willing to be very flexible. And I know because like the 2 deals that I bought, like it was so easy to work with a seller. Like they're very reasonable with it. And like they asked me, hey, Steven, or I'll ask like, hey, like I did my due diligence and it's gonna need a new roof. Like give me $30,000 in cell repair credit. He's like, yeah, sure. I just showed him the report, right? It's just it was very effortless, right? Versus a single family, you're like, oh, they're gonna like fight you over like
you gotta haggle over every little thing.
Yeah, like you're gonna fight me like over $500. Like even the 20 unit I bought, like this guy was like say, oh, I want that prorated rent. If someone pays you rent late, the moment you take over, I want that prorated rent. I'm like, all right, it's like $200. You just dropped the price by $60,000 on this deal, but you're nitpicking over $200. Okay, I'll give you $200. I don't care, right? Just get off my back. So, that's just kind of been my experience with the apartments. It's just a lot more. I think creative financing is a lot more normal, and you have more control in terms of the value, right? Because you can force the value yourself. For a single family, you can't control the value. It's based on like sales comps. So that's why I kind of like the multis or like 5 units plus.
Cool. I gotta run. Steven, thanks for hosting this. Vincent, it was super helpful to talk to you too. Have a great night, guys.
Yep. Good speaking with you.
All right. I think if no, you have a last question there, Vincent? If not,
no, I'm good. It's just good to connect and chat with others. Thanks for doing this and taking time out. Hey, quick question for you. When you were doing your 20 units, like, how did they do the valuation on your appraisal? Was it income approach or did they comp it?
They do all the methods. They do it income, price per unit. Yeah, just those two, and it'll kind of extrapolate it. But typically, I feel like they just like, because when they appraise it, they just want to make sure that it's more than the purchase price.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think it's probably gonna be worth around like $800,000 once I'm done with it. But they'll show you on the appraisal report like how they did it and like what the rationale was.
Yeah.
But it was just like you said, they just made it 400,000, and I was just like, oh, that's what I thought it'd be worth.
Okay.
So yeah, they kind of list their approach, but like I said, at the end of the day, they just want to get the deal funded because that's how they make their money.
Yeah. I have a 10 unit offer out, and then when I was talking to some other people about it, they told me that they ran into instances for the smaller multis, like under 15 or under 20. But a lot of times they'll end up using, cost per unit, like how much did other similar 5 to 15 units sold for. So that kind of scares me because I could get my cap rates up, but if I'm going by comps, then I feel kind of like the single family space again, limited. But I think every market, every appraiser is different, so I just kind of gathering to see what you ran into also.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can, like I said, use both. Like obviously, if like in Oklahoma, the price per unit's around 50. When I
Yeah.
bought, I think it increased to like maybe 60 at this point. And then in my other Oklahoma market, it's probably going to be around like 40 to 50. But I bought it for like 20K per unit, and let's say I put in 10K, I'm all in for 30, and it's going to be worth, let's just say, 50. So you still have that margin in there. So I basically, what I do is when I try to do the cash out refinance at the end, I'm trying to justify the better number of the two, right? Like,
Yeah.
is the income approach worth more, or is the price per unit worth more? So, and then you have to look at like, oh, if I do a cash out refi, what's my DSCR?
Yeah.
So that's how you kind of pitch the deal. So once you know how they think, you can pitch the deal in the way to get your valuation.
Yeah.
So yes, I understand that is a little bit out of your control, but you can also pitch it in a way where, and you can pitch it to multiple lenders, right? Until one says yes.
Yeah. That's very true. How'd you end up in the Oklahoma market?
I just had a good property manager there.
Okay, gotcha.
And then it was more affordable, where I was just like, wait a second, I can buy like a 26 unit for $500,000. That gets me a condo in California and New York.
Yeah.
Not even sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's just that it's a very steady Eddie market. I'm advertising it too much, so people are trying to compete with me now in my market. But like I said, I'm not actively looking right now, so I don't. I have one of my students is actually looking at Oklahoma right now in my market, and Edward is looking there as well. But like I said, I'm not really looking for deals right now. I'm just trying to stabilize my 90 unit portfolio and stabilize that, and then sell one of my mobile home park. And at that point, I might take a little break because I'm tired from doing all that. And then then look to buy some more deals when I'm ready.
Gotcha. It seems like you're doing a lot of BRRRRs, right? You're trying to renovate and refi and get another portfolio, or possibly some 1031.
Yeah, no, for me, I just like the BRRRR cash out refi because it just takes so much energy and work to stabilize this apartment complex. Like, why would I sell it? Right?
Yeah.
Why would I sell it when I did all the renovations, stabilize a unit? I just do cash out refi. It's cash flowing, and then I just take that money tax free and buy another one, right?
Yeah.
Without the stress of 1031. So for me, I hope not to sell it. And I mean, let's be honest here. Like, even if I sold my mobile home park and stabilized my 2 apartments, 50 units, I mean, that's enough to replace my W-2 once stabilized.
Yeah.
Right. Like, once stabilized, it's going to be about $200 per unit. That's $10,000 a month. And I would have pulled out probably all my money tax free plus some on top of that. Right. So, I mean, at that point, you can buy another apartment complex slowly. Right. So I'm just saying, this is like if you're going yourself, right? Like, a lot of syndicators, if you listen to my other videos, I kind of give them a hard time a little bit. But like, a lot of syndicators like to flex, like, oh, I own 1,000 units.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you own 1% of 1,000 units, which is still less than me, right?
Right.
And you're using other people's money, and and you're just getting paid based off fees.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what's funding your lavish lifestyle right now. You're just getting 1% fee, but like, you don't own the units yourself. Like, for me, I'd rather own 10 units myself versus syndicate 1,000 and have to deal with all these like investors.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, that's the stereotype, right? The private equity funds is just a fund of fees.
Yeah.
So they have
like
disposition fees, disposition fees, management fees.
Like, the thought of me owning like 1,000 units and having to deal with investors like stresses me out. Versus my own units, I can do whatever I want, right? It's my units,
Yeah.
And that's why I invest in real estate. And like, say, you don't need 1,000, 2,000. Like, if you listen to Bigger Pockets, that's all they flex. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's great if that's what you want to do, but like, for me, that's not what I want to do. Like, I just want to own enough real estate to basically leave my day job and just enjoy life.
Yeah.
And I don't want to deal with partners. I don't want to deal with all that stress. So I can gradually get there. It's gonna be slower, but I'll have way more real estate than I'll ever need, and my future kids will ever need.
Yeah. No, I got you. When it's funny you say that you're a pharmacy director, because I'm in Epic. That's my full-time job. I do consulting work for the EMR, but I feel like for us, we're not able to fully utilize all the depreciation of our real estate. We have to take it on the back end, because like if you make over a certain amount, then you no longer get to use that depreciation. So when I first found out about real estate, I thought, oh, I'm going to use my losses to offset my taxes on my income. And then when I finally talk to my accountant, they're like, no, you're gonna have to take it on the back end.
Yeah, if you make over 150K, which is
Yeah.
most pharmacists, you have
Yeah.
the passive active losses just carried forward.
Yeah.
So I have a shit ton of passive. I'm doing my taxes right now. I have so much passive losses because I'm renovating everything, right?
Yeah.
So it just carries forward. But like, if you got married to someone, they don't work, and at that point, you together as a unit qualify as a real estate professional, and then at that point, those losses will offset your active income, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a tax. You need a tax marriage.
Yeah.
But like I said, it carries forward for a long time. So like eventually, whenever you get there, like if I retire, or let's just say my business takes off, whatever social media, courses, mentorship, whatever, if that takes off, then you leave your W-2, then you can just offset your business income.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of the long-term goal. And yeah, but like I said, it's still like I said, my tax returns look terrible now because it's just so much losses.
Yeah.
Especially when you're stabilizing and then you do a cash out refi, it's tax free.
Yeah.
You're still carrying those losses forward, but when you go to multis, they don't really care about your tax returns. They just care about how the asset's doing. So that's why you have to go there. And who knows, I might eventually go to triple net. I don't know. Like if it's that passive, like I might just go to triple net and not even want to do apartments anymore. But
the issue I've seen with triple nets is that the cap rates are so low.
Yeah, like, it's more passive, but you get less money, right? So it's a give and take, right? Like, do you want 100 million of triple net, or like when you're buying triple net, you're just trying to preserve your wealth and stay rich.
Yeah.
You buy apartments and mobile home parks to become rich.
Yeah, because exactly.
Once you are rich, you can afford to buy triple net because you just want the tax write-off.
Yeah.
The cost seg and the salary depreciation and just maintaining your cash flow to match inflation. So it's a different game, right? It's more for like the game of the rich, but I'm not there.
Definitely.
I'm not there yet, right?
Yeah.
So it just might pivot. Like if I'm worth like $50 million, am I gonna be one doing these apartments? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But because I'm trying to make my way up, I have to take on these deals.
Yeah.
So it's just really what you want and being self-aware. And I wasn't that self-aware when I scaled to 90 units. I just was balls to the wall and just buy as much real estate as possible.
Yeah. Dude, that mobile home project, crazy. Like just hearing about it, anxiety. I was like, I can't. The deals I'm looking are like 20, 30 pad, city utilities. I'm looking to turn them into tenant-owned homes, but when you're saying the amount of infill, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, like I said, I've probably had the hardest deal as my first deal ever.
Yeah.
Like if you had a full-time team there and you're okay pumping in money for 5 years, it's gonna be worth 10 million.
Yeah. No, I believe it.
You got to put in that work, right? And then for me, I just realized like, I could not take it that far, and it would be financially irresponsible for me to continue and not try to sell it. So that's why I just said that having the real expectations of owning it, and like I said, it's not easy, right? It's not easy at all. Like at all. You're better off just investing with a syndicator and letting them deal with it, right? Like picking a good one and letting them do that. So, like I said, I was just like you. I had rosy colored glasses. Oh, I love mobile home parks, and I owned one. And I'm just like, I got humbled, and the fact that I even made money on my first deal that was this hard is, I think, pretty impressive in itself already.
Yeah, yeah.
And it kind of equips me if I ever want to go back into mobile home parks. But on the flip side, it's like, why would I? If I am I going to own enough apartments to have the need to go to mobile home parks again? Maybe not, right? I'd only be doing it just because I'm bored,
Right. No, I get that. I think in my market, people are saying stabilized mobile home parks are like at an 8 cap, tenant owned, city utilities. The heavy lifts like yours, I think it's going to be very hard to be a passive investment, even if like you have teams. It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I haven't seen like 8 caps, like true 8 caps for mobile home parks. I mean, maybe unless you're getting really good deals, but I don't really see like true 8 caps. I mean, they must be underreporting their expenses, or like you can completely get your cash flow screwed the moment you have to repay the roads, fix infrastructure.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe you have like a hazard issue that happens. I mean, there's just so many factors that can screw you over in a mobile home park that are kind of like gotchas.
Yeah.
So for me, I just thought it was just too many things out of my control. So I just said, like, you know, if I want to do it, like I said, I'd probably want it in California where I could drive to it once a quarter.
Yeah.
And like the option to like maybe even like live there like for a little bit, you know, like house hack my mobile home park, live in one unit and then manage it. But like I said, it's gonna take me being that wealthy and that bored to even consider doing that.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
So I that's why I wouldn't recommend it for someone with a W-2.
Yeah.
We have to be financially free and retired.
Yeah.
For me to say that it's worth it. Like, that's my honest opinion, but maybe you can prove me wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll let you know if I find these nice, easy 30 pad, didn't break the bank. I'm like, hey, you just gotta start slow, I guess.
Yeah. But even then, like even the 30 park, like if you get the infill 5, you're gonna learn and get humbled, right?
Yeah.
And you know, so maybe I just went too big too fast, which could be the case. And but yeah, let me know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks, man. Yeah, it's if I can ever help you with anything, just let me know. You know, definitely appreciate everything that you put out there.
Yeah. Just would appreciate if you know anyone who wants to find value from this, just invite them to these sessions. You know, I do this to give value to people, to help them learn and show them the truth of what it's like to own real estate, not the rosy picture, but the truth.
So. I talk to a lot of people about real estate, and I think a lot of people don't underwrite their capex into their pro forma. Like the really newbie people will be like, oh, my PITI is this and my rent is this, so I'm going to cash flow this. And then like the other people will account for maintenance and repairs, and I'll tell them like, look, you know, I operate at a 40-something% expense ratio right now, so the industry average is like 50, right? So be around that 40, 55 mark. Like, the worst are the ones who are not doing all the major capex up front and not expecting any capex in their underwriting, like things don't break. I was like, your strategy better be to sell that building before things start to break, then, because you're gonna once that roof goes, all your years of cash flow will wipe out.
Yeah. That's definitely true. So that's why I said people need to, like, you know, that's why I offer the course and whatnot. Like, even if you can take the course and then realize I don't want to do anything in real estate, at least you know how to vet an operator, right?
Yeah.
You know, at the very without spending your own money and you know, making huge mistakes like me. Or if you go out on your own, you can make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $100 mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Just at the very least, people just got to get educated enough to vet your operator.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell people, I'm like, oh, I syndicate because I don't have money. I want to use other people's money. But I'm like, no, do your own deal yourself. Build a track record. At that point, you can either continue doing it yourself or you can ask for money, right? Like, believe me, if after my 2 deals I'm done with, I can ask for money, right? I bought it for $500,000, it's worth 1.5.
Yeah.
You know, I doubled the value, triple the value. Like, I can raise money, but that's if you want to. Once you have that track record. So that's why I really emphasize to people. But all right, Vincent, thanks so much for hopping on and hope to see you next week.
Yeah, man. Yep. Good talking to you. Have a good one.